How should you be approaching the wide receiver position in the late rounds? Is Dalton Kincaid really the exception to the rookie tight end rule that you should just keep drafting at ADP? And is there any hope for Russell Gage resurrection now that Baker Mayfield is at QB in Tampa? All this and a ton more with Andrew Cooper tonight.
Go district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? Welcome back to the GOAT District. We have another monster show tonight and a monster guest with us tonight. He's back in the district, man. Andrew Cooper. Funny, Dan, we were on the Player Profiler Network, guys. Check that out last night with Josh Larkey. Pretty sure he's got the most appearances in the district, but Andrew Cooper is getting up there, Dan.
Yeah. When we got Larky, we had to get Coop on too. You know, it's just like peanut butter and jelly, man. You know, you got if you're gonna have one, you gotta have the other. You can't have too much peanut butter, not enough jelly. You can't have too much jelly, not enough peanut butter. So it's gotta be close to even.
I'm coming for the title. I'm coming for the crown. And the crazy thing about all that, so Larky, player profiler, 33rd team, I just got off a show where we did a best ball draft and we had Jordan Vanek on as a guest from 33rd team, dude. So we're just a big family here. And my favorite part about it is that, like, you know, Dan, I've known you since I started doing this. JD, we've become good friends here. And we agree on so much, philosophy-wise. And we agree with Josh Larkey, and we agree with Jordan Vanek. But we can still somehow disagree on so much. That's what makes fantasy football so beautiful, is that, like, we have similar processes, all these same things, but those processes lead us to still disagree, right? And that's why tonight's topic is so good, because we're talking uncertainty in the later rounds, where it's almost like we're trying to admit that maybe we don't know everything. So this is a special episode. Every time I come on here, I really enjoy it, because I know that your audience is a deep cut audience too, right? So, like, they enjoy. You know, I think we talked about Stone Smart last time on, right? So
I think we also said something like degenerates. Like,
yeah, it's degenerate. Well, that's us. I'm full on degenerate, dude. Like, across the board, sport. Like, he busted out my Celtics gear to root for the C's, even though we gotta hold on to hope. But, you know, it's like, I love doing this. People say, who's drafting in March? I am, dude. I love fantasy football, you know what I mean? So, like, let's do this. Let's get it going.
So, Dan, I've got, as you could tell by the screen, I've got some production stuff to work on here, and we've got a bit of changes here on the production side. So I'm going to let you take over, and I'm going to mess around with these visuals for our audience, just so we got everything nice.
I thought when I saw the intro, I thought you were going full, like, documentary film style. I thought we were doing like a little Blair Witch thing here, which I kind of like that. Should I make mine a little more rugged? Should I get in there too?
All right, Dan, why don't you introduce this man proper for those who might not be as familiar with Andrew, and then we'll get into the goodness.
All right, yeah. So Coop, man, he's the lead NFL analyst at FantasyAlarm, right? To start with, you can catch him on SiriusXM. You can catch him on Better Network, pretty much all the time. He's been nominated for the FSWA Writer of the Year award, which is one that I really like seeing, because I enjoy great writing style. and Coop has got great writing style. I mean, just the use of GIFs and everything else sprinkled within. I mean, like reading a Coop article is not a slog, and so many fantasy articles are just like this big slog that you're trying to, okay, get to the point, I'm scanning, okay, what are they trying to say here really? And like Coops, I just sit down and read, like it's, it's entertainment and knowledge all wrapped up into one. So that's where I'm at on that. Andrew, you want to say anything else about yourself? What you got going these days?
I just want to say I appreciate that, man, because that's exactly what I go for. In that I know that no one wants to read a 7,000 word article on tight ends where we're talking about Durham Smythe, right? So I know I got to break it up, right? I got to mix in a couple gifts and stuff here and there. So I appreciate that you appreciate that, because to be honest, when I first started, obviously I always played fantasy football, but I would used to read the articles on cracked.com. You guys ever on Cracked? And it was like that. It would be a topic like, whatever it was, and they would break it up with like funny stuff. And I just thought to myself, I was like, if I was ever going to, I wanted to write for them. And then I just thought, like, you know what, if I'm going to write my stuff, and that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to like mix it up, make it fun for people, where at the end of it, you'll enjoy reading it, and then you'll realize that you just read 4,000 words on Chickaconquo, and it wasn't that bad, right? So that's kind of the goal. So I appreciate you taking the time to read, man, because the kids these days, I don't know. It's
I'm going to add this too, Andrew. Dan is, I mean, you see the guests we have on our show, on our channel. I mean, the best of the best come on here. When you come on, for some reason, Dan's extra giddy. The show sheet is something that we try to, share dibs on, and whoever's available, that kind of thing. Dan will do it if he can. But when Coop's coming on, man, first thing in the morning, he's like, "Hey guys," sends the link right away. Guys, how's the show sheet looking? Let's get this out. He's ready to go.
Well, there's two things on that I will say is that one, I've known Dan since I first started doing this. When I say doing this, like when I first met Dan through Scott Fishbowl, I had never done any show. Like I had to borrow a Yeti Blue microphone from John and Pemba, and I first started doing this. And that's when I first met Dan. And like we have talked tight end stuff for so long, and like I respect the way he operates within it. Like to me, Dan is within there's no tight end whisperer to me. Howard Bender was the original tight end whisperer, and Dan is well within the brotherhood of tight end whisperers. So like with the GOAT District, when you guys say he's our resident tight end whisperer, to me he is a tight end whisperer. So like Dan, that's why with this show, every time you invite me on, like I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it. Like typically I would say, hey, I have a show today. Right before this, I did a best ball draft with the Fantasy Alarm members. Typically I would tell people, hey, I don't think I could do this show. But with this show, I was like, yeah, whatever. You give me a minute, right, in between the shows, and we'll do it. Yeah. Yeah. So, hey, well, why don't we start talking about, instead of just patting each other on the back, let's talk a little football, huh? What do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely. So, let's start off, Andrew, with an article that you put together a couple days ago, or put out a couple days ago for Fantasy Alarm, and I just really liked your approach on it. It detailed how to approach the wide receiver position kind of in the late rounds, and not just wide receivers, but tight ends too. I really think it is must-read material. If you haven't been there to read it, make sure you get there and read it. In the tweet, I'll throw a link to it. In the YouTube, I'll throw a link to it in the comments as well, so that everybody gets a chance to read that. But I think it's a great article. I think it's a great way to approach the late rounds. And if Andrew, can you just give us a quick summary of the concepts inside of it, and kind of what your goal was there?
Yeah, absolutely. So like we always talk, like in the real world, we talk about like that moment that you realize you like grew up, right? Like that moment you became an adult. And when it comes to fantasy football, in the community that we have, like Twitter, Reddit, people, once you get involved in not just playing but actually talking about it, there are two moments where, to me, you've transcended being a fan and became an analyst. One of those is when you stop just rooting for your own players on your favorite team or your actual fantasy team. Like you guys know, there's a huge chunk of people that just go on Twitter and defend only the guys they've already drafted or the guys on the Patriots or whatever, right? So like once you transcend that, you've become an analyst. The other one is what this article is about. And that's recognizing what you don't know. And I don't mean that people get really offended by the idea that they might not know something. And they almost sometimes feel like they have to have a take where there's a point where you recognize no one can know. And that's when you become like, that's the big alpha brain moment. And that's what this article is about. It's about finding late round. This one's about wide receivers, but it can apply to any position. We'll talk about a couple of them today, where you look at the different aspects of it. In this one, we look at the quarterback changes, coaching changes, scheme changes, and personnel changes, and say, okay, that creates uncertainty. How do we take advantage? So that's what this article is about. It's on FantasyAlarm.com.
Right, exactly. And the big point there is, you can know a lot about those players in the late round and still not know a lot, because what we're asking ourselves to do is to know the future. We're holding a draft right now that's going to play out months from now during a season with all sorts of, just obstacles and everything that we cannot, twists, turns, everything else that we cannot possibly anticipate. And so, the concepts behind this article are like, let's take advantage of that. Let's find a way to make that work for us. So I think one of the nice places where you can do that is on the FFPC, and I think Mr. JD has a little bit to say about that.
Yeah, for sure, guys. That's the place to be, especially this time of year, myffpc.com. We talk about it on the channel often. We do the live drafts from $35 to $77 to $125 best balls, $350 to get you into the Fantasy Pros Championship. That's the big one, guys. That's the big one. $1 million grand prize. And of course, the main event, $2,000 to get in. Discounts going on right now. You save $100 on your first team, save $400 on each additional team for the early bird, and that deadline is coming up on May 31st. So make sure you sign up before that. If you're not already on the site, guys, use the code GOAT, or I'll add the link at the bottom in the description, so that you guys can click on that after the show. And yeah, man, we appreciate their support. We appreciate your support, and you can show more support by going to check out the FFPC. And just to add, Andrew, we say often on this channel, we don't know shit. And it's like and I think that's the key. And Dan and I that's why we're so like-minded, and I think yourself as well. You got to leave room for the possibilities. And if you don't always assume that you know those possibilities, you have a higher chance of hitting them.
Especially with us, like the Generates, the crew, Toronto Dave in the chat. Like, we're doing, I know, I don't think you could do many best balls in Canada. We gotta hit up on our dog, get that going, dude. But it's like the ones of us that, if I'm gonna do 100 best ball drafts, any situation I'm not fully guaranteed sure on, I'm going to spread out the love, right? So like, I'll give a great example from the article. Probably the number one example, and it's great because it applies to this year as well, the same team. In 2020, we looked at the Carolina Panthers, right? And they brought in a new coach, Matt Rule, new offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, who they fired midseason. They had a new quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater. They still had DJ Moore, but they brought in Robbie Anderson, Chosen Anderson now, and they brought in Curtis Samuel, right? So, like, it was up in the air as to what was going to go on, like who was going to get the ball. And everyone thought it was DJ Moore. He was going wide receiver 11 in fantasy football. Robbie Anderson was going wide receiver 64. Curtis Samuel was going 65. Well, it turns out they flipped the script on us. DJ Moore had been an underneath guy. He got flipped to a deep ball guy. And then Robbie Anderson and Curtis Samuel were running underneath. They actually outscored DJ Moore. It was that uncertainty. We thought we knew. The entire industry thought they knew. DJ Moore going 11, those guys going 65. And we were wrong, right? So it's those situations. Right now, again, with the Panthers, I mean, it's a new coach. It's a new coach, new quarterback, all new wide receivers except Terrace Marshall. Who knows, right? So it's those situations we're looking for where there's so much uncertainty and the pecking order is all over the place where we can take advantage. And it's, that's part of like being an analyst and maturing, is saying, you're not saying I don't know, so I have to look it up. You're saying, I've researched this. and it's uncertain enough that we can take advantage of it. That's kind of the the alpha brain level of that type of stuff, right? Where you can sit back, because you'll mess yourself if you're doing 100 best ball drafts, you'll mess yourself up taking the same guy every single time, and then he's not good, right? So you have to be very careful of that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, to that point, humility is kind of a necessary part of really being good at fantasy football. Being able to just, admit to yourself, there are things we don't know, there are things we can't know. And to embrace that and say, since I don't know, how am I going to handle this differently than rather than just pretend that I know, or, like you said, with the late round guys, if you keep hammering the same 5 guys over and over, well, if those guys hit, fantastic. You had a great season. But if they don't hit, it can really wreck you too, because you've got to get some late round production out of some of your teams for sure, because you're definitely not going to hit them all right on the early rounds. So
I love Toronto Dave in the chat. Put that up there. Strategic humility. That's, that's the name of the strategy.
And as a Canadian, I'm going to blame your political system, man. You guys are all about having to pick sides. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to pick a side. That's the
red
problem.
or blue.
Everybody
That's right.
Pick a side, be on a team, because there's only 2 sides. Well, it's not like that in every decision, and it's not like that in football. There's a lot of possibilities. So you got to cover yourself so that you're not missing, not in a FOMO way, but in a way that you realize that the possibilities are so wide that you want to cover a lot of those possibilities. And you don't want to be too clumped into one of those possibilities because the percentages are probably small, So it's all about the balance, it playing those probabilities. And I love that you're bringing it up, and I love that you go in and write articles about this, because I do it, but I don't know how to talk about it like you do, man. That's beautiful.
Oh, of course you do, brother. Of course you do, man. I listen to the show, dude. I come on the show, dude. You guys, you wax poetic on here, and that's the thing is, nowadays, I made fun of TikTok earlier, but you can get information from TikTok. You can get information from Twitter. I prefer articles because that's how I build my knowledge base. I have to do it. This reptile brain, it's like I couldn't just sit here and look at a spreadsheet and then do a podcast. I have to do the work through the articles, and then that's how it translates for me.
It's proven that you learn more when you're writing it down.
I think that's part of the trick.
6-year-old that right now,
You guys want to know the secret to how I come up with most of my best article ideas? I get into an argument with somebody on Twitter or Reddit, and especially on Twitter, and I hit that 280 character limit. And I just go, I'm gonna kill this guy, dude. Yeah, you can't handle the truth. I'm gonna kill this guy. I go, I'm going to come back here and I'm gonna have this argument. And now what I do is I have so many of these that when people come to argue with me, I just post a link. I go, here you go, boss. Why don't you read up? And then half of them don't even take the time to read, so it gets me out of the argument.
It's like how's them apples?
How's them apples? Yeah, that's exactly what it is with the article post, dude. So yeah, that's part of the game. But I will say, with that example, just to wrap that one up, so when you finally get to that mindset where we say we don't know for sure, and you get into these underdog drafts or FFPC. I love FFPC whenever I'm on this show. And when you get in those drafts at the end, I find myself rooting for, right now with the Panthers, none of them go in the top 10 rounds on underdog. Thielen goes round 11, Mingo round 12, Chark round 13. I have a good amount of Chark so far. I have at least some of all of them, but I love when somebody takes Chark or Mingo first, and I can take Thielen as the third guy. Or I love when Mingo falls to the last guy, because now I know I'm getting the value and I'm diversifying on a situation where we can't know for sure, right? We couldn't possibly know. I've been taking a little Terrace Marshall too, because I'm kind of terrified of how uncertain it is, right? It's kind of a little scary how uncertain it is, but the picks are so late. Like for regular redraft leagues, I don't know why those are going off, but for picks for regular redraft leagues, you can wait and draft your entire team and then take one of them, right? So it's a beautiful thing. The Panthers, and we can get into some more teams and some more situations, because I feel like that's the goal of the show today, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and last night we had a great discussion with Josh Larkey, which unfortunately was off the air due to time constraints, and so we had to stop recording. But then we just kind of kept talking, and we were talking about kind of this wide receiver dead zone that we've perceived, and that loading up on the wide receivers early is great, but then you've got you got to hit some running backs in there, and then kind of those middle rounds while the wide receivers are dead, man, we're hitting the the tight ends, we're hitting the quarterbacks, kind of getting the rest of the lineup sort of put together, and then you come back to the late rounds, and now you've got those wide receiver situations or those tight end situations, wherever you need the help, and you can look at all these situations, and we're going to kind of go through a few of them in a little bit here, and talk about, how do you go through and examine the situation in Chicago? How do you go through and examine the situation in New York? Things like that. But you can go through and you can have, now you've got some options late too that you can come back in and kind of finish off your wide receiver core however you feel like you need to, or finish off your tight ends. So are you seeing, Andrew, a wide receiver dead zone in there in your drafts anywhere as you're doing those, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, so I know you guys talked with Larky about it yesterday. I checked out quite a bit of that before I jumped on here. That is happening. Because it happens anytime there's a position that gets pushed up. So it happened with running backs, and we put them all on last year. It was a running back dead zone because we, as a community, we kind of said these are 3 down backs, and these are only early down backs, and these are only passing down backs. So those 3 down backs we put on a pedestal, we pushed them way up, and that's what created the dead zone. Anyone that was a Fantasy Alarm member or who was reading my stuff was drafting Miles Sanders in that position, and they are very rich people now. They're probably not even watching the stream. They're probably on an island with a little umbrella in their drink, But everyone else had to sort through that dead zone, and now we're getting that at wide receivers where it's crazy. How early best balls, if this is how it ends up in redraft, it's going to be wild. Not only are the wide receivers going early, but I'm seeing quarterbacks kind of going early. That creates that dead zone too. But so many wide receivers are going early, and it's forcing you to chase them, that there's like the huge wide receiver chunk, and then there's the RB chunk where you feel really good about the RBs, and then everything kind of falls off. But the wide receivers in there feel especially gross. And that's where this strategy already starts. So the Panthers is such a good example because they're round 10 or later, like they're just out there. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to worry about it. But in the middle rounds there's a bunch of other ones that are going that we can get into that I still feel pretty good about. So in the wide receiver dead zone, you do have to pick your horse, right? You have to pick your guys and go for them there. After that, you fill it out. But I don't know. It is a little scary. How are you guys feeling about that middle area there? I'm trying to avoid it. Honestly.
Yeah, JD, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, by that point, like you already touched on, I mean, you're going by your previous builds, or like Andrew's talking about, you're sprinkling in those unknown decisions, right? So if you're playing like a tournament where week 17 is of essence, then you're maybe looking at some of those matchup correlations, or if you're just looking at stacking, that's usually where I'm going, where it's getting ugly. But it always depends on your build, right? And like you said, the way the receiver position just dies out, and Dan, I think you and we did some live drafts. And earlier on, I was saying, like, I was really trying to hit running backs early. It felt really good. But when you get later in the draft, man, the receiver position is so ugly, whereas the running back position always feels like you can recoup. Like you can recuperate somewhere. You can find some guy that will start a certain amount of weeks during the season and fill the holes. Whereas receiver, like, you're always kind of guessing where these guys are going to fit into your lineup. So I love adding this to the tool, the toolbox, the artillery. Whereas now when I'm in the later rounds, I'm also looking for those unknown situations and sprinkling my shares around. And it helps you kind of, like you said, even manage your ownership, which we talk about often on the show. We talked about it last night.
Yeah, I think you get to the point where all of a sudden, you're looking at Gabe Davis or Cortland Sutton or Michael Thomas or guys like that. I mean, how do you feel good about any of these guys? It's just tough, and you can, at that point, you can be looking at your tight ends, you can be looking at your quarterbacks. If you didn't grab one early, this is definitely an area where you might want to grab a couple.
You mentioned you mentioned a name there that from that group that I am kind of playing the flag on, that I've written about a little bit, and that I'm willing to take, and that's Michael Thomas.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Michael Thomas, to me, a guy where, hey, there is a level of uncertainty with a new quarterback coming in. That's one of the caveats from the article I just wrote, right? Where we think it's Chris Olave that's going to lead the team in targets. That's what I would bet on. Like, if I was going to my bookie and placing a bet, that's who I would place it on. But there is a room for uncertainty where maybe he does like Michael Thomas. We talk about like age a lot of times, but to a guy like Derek Carr, who's older than Michael Thomas, like to him, he might not look at it the way we do. He might look at Michael Thomas and say, here's a guy who has the record for, receptions in a season, he's been injured the last 2 years, not even with the same injury though. And I say last 2 years, people say 3, but he had that high ankle sprain. He played through that. He played in the playoffs in 2020, right? Like, he played. 2021, he did not play. Last year, he played 3 games, then he hurt his toe, not his ankle again. So if this guy comes back healthy, don't be surprised if Michael Thomas is good, because Michael Thomas is good. So that's my soapbox on Michael Thomas. Sorry to interrupt there. But when you were like, who do you take out of these guys? I immediately was like, Michael Thomas.
Michael Thomas.
So, there you go.
And that's a perfect example of, you're going to have flag plants in there. You're comfortable with Michael Thomas. I look at a guy like Rashad Bateman, and I'm like, I'm really pretty dang comfortable with him. So there are some guys in there. They're just kind of interspersed, and there's not a lot of them. So that's kind of
I like Rashad Bateman too, but John and Pemba. Do you guys know John? He's the head editor for FantasyAlarm. He keeps the trains on the track. He's the man. Every time I take Rashad Bateman, he immediately takes Zay Flowers, and it's bothering me. Like clockwork. The moment I take him, he takes Zay Flowers. I'm like, will you stop doing that? Like, he did it again tonight. Like clockwork, man. And we both live in the Boston area, so we've, it's hard to be a Boston College fan, but we were exposed to him. So it's just like, please cut that out, dude. Like, you're getting on my. It's like he's standing right behind me. You know what I mean? That feeling where someone's over your shoulder, breathing on your neck. Yeah. So, but I still like Bateman.
Who sat behind you in class and did this.
Yeah. All the time. I'm just like, you stop, dude. Yeah. But I do like Bateman, man. JD, are you a Bateman guy? You in?
I used to pull the girl's hair in front of me.
That was a classic move.
To me, it comes back to build. I love that you picked out Thomas, because Dan and I were in a build where we did actually smash running back a little early. I think it was a BBM, Dan, or something like that, or maybe an FFPC. And when you start addressing your receiver position and you're a little light at the position, a guy like Michael Thomas, who's shown you a wide receiver 1 ceiling in this range, okay, maybe he's not going to get back to wide receiver 1, but the fact that he's shown you a wide receiver, it's a proven fact that if a receiver's been top 12, there's a higher chance he's going to be top 12 again. So when you're building your build, and maybe you waited on receiver, you went running back early, Michael Thomas is that guy that I want in that range, because there's nobody close to him that's given you even close to wide receiver 1 production in the past. So Bateman, we haven't seen it. Zay Flowers, we haven't seen it. Alan Lazard, haven't seen it. Jamison Williams, like, these are all guys that are going in his range. Rasheed Rice, Odell Beckham, you talked about Sutton, Juju. These guys are great and all, but if you really want to take a swing, Michael Thomas is a really nice swing. I like that you pointed him out.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, absolutely. So, and the thing is, again, knowing that you don't know gives you a little bit of freedom to just go out there and get your guys. You're going to lose a lot of leagues. You're going to lose way more BBMs, fail to advance, whatever, than you're going to win. You're going to have too many, you're going to have 80% of your teams probably that aren't going to advance, and that's if you're really good. So you got to be shooting for the fences. You can't be shooting for 4th place. You got to be shooting for 1st or 2nd place. And, the only way you're going to get there is to take some chances. So don't be afraid to do that for sure. But I want to tie in kind of the yin yang tight end concept here. First off, Andrew, if you want to just kind of quickly go over, your concept of the yin and yang tight end and just kind of your approach to tight end in general, how you're going about it.
Yeah, I'll tell you. So at this particular position, in all formats, I hate linear rankings. Like, to sit back and just line these guys up and sell that, to me, is bonkers. And I know that the casual gamer is always going to be a fan of that. But to give an example, an easy one at running back, how do I rank Alvin Kamara next to somebody like Jeff Wilson? Right? It's like, how do I rank these guys when I know one of them is going to miss a ton of games, the other one is going to be a low ceiling guy or whatever? It's like, how do you rank those guys on a linear basis, right? And tight ends exactly like that. There are guys we know that can't be top. They have no shot at top 5, but they're very realistically a back end tight end 1. And there's other guys like Evan Engram last year, which I came on this show and we waxed poetic about, right? Like, we were in, man, Dan, we were in, and we were right, dude. We're right. But we sat here, we acknowledged that his upside was tight end 2 and his downside was tight end 50, right? Like, we were like, and he was going tight end 22, tight end 20 off the board. He finished tight end 5. So we knew the upside and downside. Yin Yang tight end helps you escape that issue by drafting 2 tight ends. The reason I call the Yin Yang tight end, the truth be told, is that at first I was like, here's the play. You draft one safe guy who is medium floor, medium ceiling, and you draft one low floor, high upside guy, and you pair them. That's a lot of words. So at the beginning of the article one year, I just said, this is the yin, the safe guy, and this is the yang, the upside guy. And that's how we started moving forward. So I could just be like, this guy's the yin, that guy's the yang. And that's what you do is you can draft the risky guy first and then pick the safe guy, or vice versa. But you have to have somebody that can start for you week 1 and he's not going to get you a 0. And the best example was Cole Kmet last year, which Cole Kmet, he was one of the guys we were considering as a yang tight end. We didn't know. It was a complete wild card, right? But you had to have another tight end. You couldn't start him. He started the season with back-to-back 0s. So anybody that just bought in on the Cole Kmet situation probably was hurt pretty badly those first 2 games. I was starting somebody else. We were drafting Zach Ertz, Gerald Everett. Safe but boring players while we search for our upside play, right? So that's the whole point of the yin yang, and that's how we got the reason I have any followers on Twitter is because this does work, right? Like, we found Mark Andrews, even though he was wide receiver like 17. We found Darren Waller. We found Logan Thomas, who was wide receiver. Not only was he wide receiver 38 at ADP, but he was wide receiver 26 in week 6, and then he finished as a top 3 wide receiver. So that's the idea. The idea of, like, you're drafting one guy to be a placeholder, and then you're spending one bench spot finding somebody else, right? And apparently it's a sin to draft 2 tight ends, but Dan, how long have we been doing it, right? And how long has it been working for us? Exactly. And it's like, like, we're finding all these guys. There's been a tight end that's come from outside the top 17 in ADP to finish top 5 every year for the last 6 years. Yep. Every year. Eric Ebron, Darren Waller. There will be. We will find it.
Did I not say you guys are going to be taking notes tonight? I hope you guys are smashing that like button right now, because the goodness that Andrew's bringing is just, it's too good, man. It's too good.
Well, dude, the reason I do this, because I say this every time I come on the show, is that your listeners, your followers, they care, right, about this stuff. There's so many other shows where they come on, they say, hey, give us your top 10 tight ends. And that's the show. And you know what? There's a place for that in the world, the casual fantasy gamers, but that's not the GOAT district. You guys doing crazy stuff out here. So I love that.
Yeah, we cater to the degenerates. No doubt about it.
The deep ones. The one thing that drives me nuts is when you do we're not doing any of those questions, are we? The trade questions? Because you guys have your fans bring in the crazy trade questions.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Like, they're in the deep weeds with those, dude. It boggles my mind when we do those. So, are we doing any of those tonight, or
we'll see if they pop up in the?
We have no idea.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. I was like, they come in here.
Pretty loaded sheet, so we want to smash it. But if you're out there in the chat, guys, drop the question.
Yeah, throw your questions in. No IDP questions, please. For sure. Good God.
And if you're watching this on replay, drop them in the comments, and we'll come back and answer you guys.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit about how you sprinkle in the yins. Those are your best bets to be the cheap targets. How do you fit them into this concept of taking these targeted shots? Wait, are you drafting your yin tight ends kind of throughout, just wherever they might be, or is there a particular zone where you find that they tend to be clustered?
So it depends. To me, like for me personally, it depends how deep my leagues are, because I do play leagues with family members. Because my family, my aunts and uncles, they're all Angels, so I'm going to play fantasy football with them. They want to play fantasy football with me, but those are like 10-team leagues with like no benches, right? So in those with the Yins, I will draft one earlier because I know I can find them on the wire. I know I can find the upside on the wire. They're going to be lying all over the ground. So for me, I will take one earlier and make sure I have a safe guy, knowing that I can just like find the upside guy on the wire. With the with deeper leagues, I'll wait longer and longer. So it's kind of format dependent. The important part is that you go through and you sort them, because we can go. Honestly, if you guys want, we can take a quick look at like Underdog ADP or one of these, and I can tell you how I sort them. A big part of it, as Dan, as you know, as we always talk about, is upside. You need a guy who can be you want a guy who can lead his team in targets, but who can at least be second, right? We want top 2 targets on the team. That's how you get Mark Andrews, Darren Waller, Travis Kelce. These guys are leading their team in targets, or at least they're considered the focal point that in any given game they can lead the team. That's in your mind. You need to always be thinking about that for the Yang tight ends, and it doesn't matter what the floor is. So like Evan Engram last year, we're looking at it and we're like brand new coach, a coach that loves tight ends. Christian Kirk comes in, he wasn't on the team. Zay Jones wasn't on the team. Marvin Jones wasn't on the team. It's like a whole Evan Engram wasn't on the team. So we're like, hey, why not? Why not go for the guy with tight end eligibility here? That's the whole thought process. So and you know what? He could have been the 5th target on the team. Dan Arnold could have, maybe who knows if Dan Arnold could have been better than him. He's not, but we know that. But it's a possibility. So like that's how we look at it, and you have to make sure that you have that upside. And the floor I don't care about, because we'll just drop them. So that's how you find the Yangs. With the Yins, you need targets. You need a minimum number of targets. The reason that they're Yins is because we know that typically there's 2 guys on the team that are just better, right? Like I look at anyone that's going to be a tight end for the Bengals, immediately T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are better. So Irv Smith at best is a Yin tight end, right? I don't even really like him in this sense, but Dallas Goedert, George Kittle, those guys can fit in that role. They're expensive though, so you got to make those decisions.
I was going to ask you where the top tier guys fit in this.
Yeah. So like for me, I always have an elite tier that I think has a good enough floor and ceiling that if you take them, you only draft 1 tight end, and that's going to be Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, and to me, Kyle Pitts fits, because I truly believe in Kyle Pitts. The thing is with TJ Hawkinson, he's probably next, but you're betting TJ Hawkinson either matches or is better than Jordan Addison in targets. Right now, if you guys had to pick, who do you think, because we know Justin Jefferson will get the most. Right now, if you had to pick, do you think it would be Hawk or Addison?
I think we draft like it's Hawk, Dan.
Right. So that's the thing. It's like you kind of got him, man, Yeah. And in an underdog, I'm drafting Hawk at times and I'm drafting Addison at times. But I'm drafting them. I'm never reaching for either because we don't know, right? So when there's a level of uncertainty, I'm less likely to reach. The more certain I am, the more likely I am to reach. And sometimes I'm wrong, but we do a pretty good job, right? Like we put in the work at least to give ourselves the best chance to succeed.
Right, exactly. And again, just to kind of go back on one of the things you said and highlight it again, it's got to be somebody who has a shot at being number 1 or number 2 on the team in targets. It's like, it doesn't, a lot of people approach the tight end from the position of talent first, and then they worry about, all that other stuff. And it's really kind of the other way around. Yeah.
Shout out to Joe. There you go.
Joe, good job, dude.
Austin boy hitting on the Pat's comment. There you go, Joe.
But he's right though. He's right though, because we don't know, right? Juju, I kind of like him to be 1, but I mean, hey, if let's say Juju is guaranteed the number 1 target of the Pats, who's second?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Look out now. There you go, Joe. I like that.
Yeah, these are our listeners, man. They
I know,
get it.
The crushers, dude. I see 1912 in there, dude. Like, these are the guys I love. He shows up every time too, man. So I love hanging out with these. Yeah, he's a G, dude. So good folks out here, man. And that's why I can feel free to just get wild and say these things, because like they understand. Sometimes, it's like you can't go on Sirius XM as a guest and talk about concepts like this. There's no time. You know what I mean? There are too many commercials and all that stuff. Yeah, truly though. And then the people, they're just like listening to whatever. They would change the channel if I went into these strategies, but but that's why we win so many leagues though. Cause it's like, we take this very seriously. Yeah.
Exactly. This is for all the people who wouldn't change the channel. So this is where you need to be listening.
It's all the people that don't have Sirius XM. Because they're like normal.
They're too busy listening to podcasts and stuff.
Exactly, dude.
What is it like to be normal? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. Yeah, because they're not normal enough.
Yeah. Come on.
Right.
But the thing is, I listen to the Fantasy Alarm show, like Howard Benner and Jim Bowden. Those guys crush, dude. You know, but the thing is, it's the fantasy channel. It's not fantasy football channel. So they talk. I mean, if you have a show with Jim Bowden, you're going to talk about baseball, right? He was the GM for the Braves. So it's like they mix it up there. You know, not getting too far in the deep cuts. We'll get in the deep cuts here.
Yes, exactly. So let's. I know we're going to get to Conklin later, but there's a question from 1912.
Yeah, two of our favorites. Two of our favorites there. One of Dan's and both. Yeah.
Well, so I'll tell you what. Do you start let's talk about some of the concepts, right? Let's start doing the math. In this particular one, we have the benefit of uncertainty based on the quarterback change. No matter what, both teams have new quarterbacks, so it's a clean slate. We think it's Garrett Wilson. Could it be Alan Lazard? I don't know. Could they brought in Randall Cobb? Could it be Tyler Conklin? I'll tell you what, I was looking at some stats, and I'm not a big Tyler Conklin fan in general. He's not a big tackle breaker, but I'll tell you this. There was one stat I was looking at, and I couldn't shake it, where I pulled up all the players in 2-minute drill, and I looked at 3 minutes just because like the minute leading up to the 2-minute warning it matters for it, right? And all the players, 2-minute drill, at the end of the second, fourth, and overtime, last 3 minutes, and Tyler Conklin had the second most targets of any player, not just tight ends, of any player in those situations. So that is interesting. But me personally, I think Juwan Johnson playing slot is a guy I'm taking in a bunch of spots. He's a converted wide receiver that plays slot, so I'm taking him in a ton of spots. And here's the thing about that. For all the people out there that come to me, like we just made fun of them and said Michael Thomas is going to get hurt, right? If you truly believe that Michael Thomas is going to get hurt, who are you drafting, right? Because you leverage that information. Take Rashid Shaheed, take Juwan Johnson, reach for Chris Olave. Like, what are you doing about it? You know, you seem to have this magical doctor fortune teller information. What are you doing about it, right? So for me, I do take Juwan Johnson ahead of Tyler Conklin. Let me guess. JD, you like Conklin? Dan, you like Juwan, or is that flipped? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we both like both, but we both like.
Yeah, we do both like both.
Well, the thing with Conklin, I'm taking in best ball because I watched this wasn't a mirage. Like it wasn't a mirage. I watched Aaron Rodgers throw 11 touchdown passes to Robert Tonyan. Like that happened, right? You know, and I think Tyler Conklin's a better player than Robert Tonyan. So.
We know he's a better player than Irv Smith.
That's what I'm saying. Oh,
but anyway, here's what I like about Juwan is, right now I think he's a great yin, but he has a path to yang too. Because if Michael Thomas does get hurt, then all of a sudden your yin becomes a yang, and you've got ice cream and you've got sprinkles. And
that's why I can never the thing about drafting Dallas Goedert and George Kittle, even if we say they're not top targets, I can never say I will never turn to somebody if they take them at or around ADP and say that's a bad pick, because you're virtually guaranteeing yourself a back end tight end one. And like you said, if you get that injury, it's wheels up. And somebody always sneaks in because of injury. It's just the nature of the game. Evan Ingram as a rookie probably would not have been tight end 5 if Odell Beckham didn't get hurt week 4, right? So I have no problem with those picks. It's just I'm not usually making them because in that group, Dallas Goedert, George Kittle, I'm scrolling down to tight end 7 and looking at him possibly leading his team in targets. Do you know who that is that I'm thinking of? He just changed teams himself. And he's been tight end 2. Darren Waller, yes. That's the reason I can't take Kittle or Goddard, because I look at that group and I say, which one of these guys could lead his team in targets? Wallbanger.
Yes, definitely. And again, it kind of comes down to, a lot of people think they have the crystal ball and he's going to get hurt and all of that, but we don't know that.
No.
So let's kind of go into JD. Do you have some ideas, some specific teams we can look at, players, things like that?
Yeah.
Let's just kind of, drill down another level, work the wide receivers back in there, all that, and just kind of talk about how we're approaching different teams.
I think what helps a lot of people, I think the thing that helps most people, and I haven't even done this yet. I just wrote the article, but we haven't done this. But it's like, okay, we know, like you take the combination is, okay, know what we know, admit what we don't know, and then try and make our best guess. Let's pick some of those teams and say, hey, this looks pretty uncertain. What's our best guess, right? And we'll see if we can sort some out.
So this will be a popular one, and I know this is one where I've been spreading it nicely. Chicago with Fields.
Yeah.
You've got DJ Moore. You've got Chase Claypool. I mean, they paid quite a bit for Claypool. They obviously got DJ Moore in the trade. So heavily invested in both these guys. Is DJ Moore being overdrafted in best ball tourneys, do you think? So right now he's going wide receiver 20 in FFPC, wide receiver 23 in Underdog. Mooney's going wide receiver 58, and then Claypool, wide receiver 85. What do you like in this offense? How do you see this playing out?
Yeah, I mean, I tell you, we don't know who it's going to be. And the three of us have done this for long enough that we could put all three of those names in a hat, and each one of us could draw a name, and then we could make an argument, right? Like, we hate to admit it. We hate to admit that that's true, that we could pull the names from the hat. I can make an argument for any one of them if you wanted me to. DJ Moore's the easiest one because he's going first. But we've done this before with the Panthers, the same player, right? From the example earlier.
They've become the Patriots backfield, let's face it.
That's right. So it's like you can make we can make arguments for all of them. Moondog, especially in best ball, I mean, at any given time, because of his speed, because of his role as a flanker, he could make big plays. But I'll tell you, Claypool at wide receiver 85 is the one I like best. And we have a couple narratives working in our favor. One, anytime people start making jokes on Twitter, I make a little note. Like anytime people start making the jokes, if one person says he's burned me in the past, I say, great. I'm glad he burned you because he's going to help me. Joe Mixon helped me a lot after burning all those people. I do not care. So I look at Chase Claypool. Let's go through what happened last year. They traded for him for 3 games. He played a less than 40% snap share because he didn't know the playbook, right? In that 4th game, he bumped up to a 60%, but Justin Fields missed the game. He wasn't even in the game. The next game was the one game that we got Fields and Claypool, but Claypool hurt his knee. But before he hurt his knee, he played 67% of the snaps. He caught 5 of 6 targets. Next week was the bye week. Then Claypool missed the next 2 weeks with a knee. Claypool came back off the knee, played 30% of the snaps. And week 18, when they were going to link up again, they shut Justin Fields down because he had the ankle. So these guys they not once played a full game together, but they did play one game where Claypool played 60% and he got 6 targets. So I look at it and say, why not, right? Like early in the draft, you say why? Why am I drafting Jamar Chase? Because he's amazing, right? Like because he has a 9, without getting injury, what odds would you put of Jamar Chase being a top 24 wide receiver if he doesn't get hurt one time?
Almost 100%.
99. I think I would.
Yeah.
I would even as a odds smith. I would say 99. JD 99.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So like we ask
Canadian,
ourselves.
come on.
Exactly, dude. So you say okay, why are we drafting this guy? That's why. Later on it flips. We say why not, right? Like
Yes.
why not? Why can't Chase Claypool score? I've seen the guy score 11 touchdowns with my own eyeballs and rushing touchdowns within that, right? Like I've seen this guy do impressive things. I've seen him be a top 24 wide receiver. So that's where I'm at with it. But I'll take them all. Again, if DJ Moore slides, I'll take him. But the nature of the uncertain game is to collect value. I'll reach for Claypool because he's a wide receiver 85. Like you have to reach he would go undrafted if you don't reach for him. You know what I mean? But
Right.
yeah, it's like I guess is that reaching if you take a guy with your last?
He's going Dan wide receiver 97th in the Fantasy Pros Championship. Like that.
I mean, like,
I had to
that's
scroll
undrafted.
all the way to the. It's like him, Cedric Tillman, and like Darius Slayton are the options.
It's like it's because of the jokes, dude. It's literally 100% because of Twitter memes that he doesn't go because it's
he
like
can be a red zone monster, man. He did it in Pittsburgh.
he's the last time he had Big Ben. Say what you will, but Big Ben that year was slinging the ball like he was huck it chuck it football, like desperation football. And then the next year he wasn't good, but whatever you're getting from Big Ben was better than what you got from Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett threw 7 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
Right.
That's because Big Ben was wishing him a bad.
He was like, yeah, he had like I saw that, dude. He admitted it too, right?
Believe it. I love it.
He had like a Kenny Pickett like voodoo doll that he was like poking or whatever, dude. What is that? Why are you gonna root against him to protect your legacy? That's bonkers, bro.
That's a little bit of insecurity, right?
Well,
there.
it's like if you break up with a girl, you don't want her to go out with like Tom Brady. You know what I mean?
I guess that's true, dude.
Bald guy, it's the same thing.
I guess that's right, dude. All right.
Yeah, but anyway,
I'm gonna ask you guys, Darnell Mooney, are you doing it? Are you guys doing it? Are you guys picking him at all? I don't think I've picked him yet.
People forget
he's the one I've taken the least.
Same. I agree, but I'm looking at like dude. He gave you 2 top 5 weeks in 2 years ago.
Yeah,
he gave you 120, 121, and this is what, a touchdown and 6 receptions. So. I mean, he was all over the place that year. I mean, they've added weapons, but again, because we don't know how this plays out, we don't know how this offense plays out at all. So he's coming back. He wasn't there last year. He wasn't strong last year. So the whole recency bias is definitely playing a factor. But he has just a chance as any of these guys to be a top target monster there in Chicago. I
have him on hold for now, just because I saw. Somebody said they don't have answers on when he'll be back. I don't like the sound of that.
Oh, injury? You mean injury? What, like health wise?
Yeah. Well, health wise, I mean, if he was completely healthy, I think we would all know us. I mean, how many best ball drafts do you? How many drafts do you get? You guys do 1 million drafts every offseason, right? So
too many.
Like you have to have a couple shares, right? Like I think our homework walking away from this is to get Mooney, but I don't think that. I look at his ADP, and I don't think people realize how serious of an injury he suffered last year. And I don't think that it's a situation where when we see him actually healthy, his ADP is going to skyrocket. No. So I think I'm just going to wait a little bit for somebody to tell me he's okay.
Yeah, I'm at 5% ownership. But I didn't realize he was still hurt though. That's a big factor. I didn't realize he was still hurt.
The last thing I saw is Eberflus. It's Eberflus, right, Matt? Yep. Some names I just never figure. I just hope they go away sometimes.
You nailed that one. Right? You nailed it.
Eberflus. Yeah. So like he said he doesn't have answers about when Mooney will be back. I don't like that.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't like that. Yeah.
How about so Cole Kmet is kind of a different case, because last year he was a Yang tight end, right?
Right.
He was that guy we were looking to, could be number 2 in targets on the team. Do you think it's inevitable now that he's a Yin tight end? Has he inevitably crossed over? I
think he's even. I'm just out on him that this year. I mean, the crazy thing with him last year is that like I got so much flack when he scored 0 points over the first 2 weeks. But he finished at tight end 8. Like he ended up being a good best ball tight end, not trustworthy in the least. And that's the scary thing about the tight end position. Tight end 6, Tyler Higbee, was unstartable. Like they were in the beginning of the year, you could start him. This guy was playing a 90% snap share and throwing down 0 spots in games. Like you could not possibly trust this guy to be your starting tight end, and he still technically finished as tight end 6 based on accumulation of stats. So that's why I avoid that whole area in the middle there. It's either go big or go home. But Cole Kmet, we're scared. Not only do they bring in more weapons, but that team threw the fewest amount of passes we've seen in a very, very long time. I looked it up. Not just them, but the Falcons. You have to go back to 2019 Jets. 2009 Jets, not 19, 9 Jets. So we're talking almost 15 years. 2009 Jets to find a team that threw that few number of passes. So obviously it's got to come up a little bit, but how far does it come up? Not enough to support 2 wide receivers and a tight end? I don't think so. Yeah, the last time we had 2 top 24 wide receivers and a top 5 tight end was the Denver Broncos in 2013 when Peyton Manning threw 55 touchdown passes. It's crazy.
So you do not think that Justin Fields is going to throw for 55 touchdowns?
You know what? Like we said, I won't put it in the. I won't leave it out. But let's just say that take that 99% we put on Jamar Chase. I'll put it there. I'll tell you what. I had one of my buddies who follows me on Twitter. The one year I like posted like he was so after Mahomes threw 50 touchdown passes, he was like all over me being like, his floor is 40 touchdown passes. I was like, you can't say that about anybody. And he goes, I was like, we don't even know any one of these guys could lead a number of guys. And he was like, no chance Lamar Jackson could lead. And I was like, he might. And then he did. And dude, I think I've retweeted that and then unretweeted it 4 different times. Like I'll just go back and just I'll take my buddy's tweet where he's like, no chance Lamar Jackson leads in touchdowns, and I'll just maybe after the show I'll go in and retweet it again because it's funny to put him on blast.
It's about time, I would say. It's about time.
I think it's about time to put him on blast again. And although I will say this kid was the one that brought Darren Waller to me. So I didn't know his story, and he's a pretty plugged in kid, and he was like, this guy is a wide receiver, and he was washed. He was washed out, and I was like, okay, I put him on my radar. And the moment Antonio Brown, brought a fake helmet to practice and froze his feet off and called the GM a cracker.
Did that not seem like it was like 100 years ago?
Is that bad?
I was like, the moment that started happening, I was like, this guy, and I'm like, let's move this guy up a little bit, right? And it's like, just think about how we got Darren Waller. Bryan Edwards bust, 2nd round pick. 3rd round pick was that guy that was like a half running back they traded to the Dolphins with the tattoos all on his neck. And then Henry Ruggs went to jail. So it was like Darren Waller, total red carpet, total like circus red carpet move to get him into that spot, And now he's there again.
Yep. Hey, it just falls right for some people, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So here was a good question from one of our listeners. How is the Cowboys tight end situation going to work itself out?
Yeah,
I know my answer to this. I'm dying to hear yours. It might be the same.
I'll tell you how is it going to work out. It's going to work out like I'm going to be watching it with like binoculars from a long way away. Like, is that the same answer for you? I'll be watching it from like a million miles away, dude. That's where I'll be watching it because, like, I can't look. I have to look at those pass catchers and say this guy is at least as good of a pass catcher as the wide receiver 2 or 3, right? So I have to like CeeDee Lamb. It's out of the question, right? I mean, like Luke Schoonmaker. Like, come on now. Like, that's obviously out of the question. But like, Brandon Cooks is, say what you will, if he continues to play for another 5 years, it's going to be hard to look at his stats and say that guy's not a Hall of Fame caliber player. Like when you look at it, he's 20. How is he still 29 years old, dude? Like if you sort the guys his age, 29 or under, it's like him. Obviously, like it's like him, Jerry Rice, Larry Fitz, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown. He's like 8th on that list of yards, right? Like. So that's a good player. Michael Gallup's a good player. I don't believe in any one of... I mean, Jake Ferguson could be the starting tight end. The rookie could. Peyton Hendershot could play a bunch of slot. I'm with you, Dan. I'm just like, no.
All we've got is a lot of narrative that, Dak loved throwing to, Dalton Schultz. And now you have basically 3 Dalton Schultzes instead of 1. And, I don't know. I mean,
when you go back,
figure out.
When you go back through the Dalton Schultz history, there's a lot of like Robert Tonyan to it, where it was like Robert Tonyan had that 3 touchdown game versus the Falcons when Devontae Adams and Alan Lazard were out, and 3 of the Falcons safeties were out. It's like, yeah, of course. Dan, you would have had 2 touchdowns in that game. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you're Robert. At least 2. I'm not going to give you 3. But you would have had 2. Under those circumstances.
I would have dropped the 3rd one.
I won't mention I like Kanye last year. The problem for me with Ferguson, as much as like coming into this offseason, I was like, oh, Jake Ferguson, he's going to be alone getting targets there. He's going to replace Schultz, yada, yada, yada. I like the guys going around him a lot more. Like I like Jelani Woods in Indy. I love everything about him. He's more settled in that offense now. He's 2nd, 3rd year now. He's just athletic freak. He's got a young quarterback coming in now. Ty Conklin, we talked about, he's going in that range. Even Trey McBride, man, in Arizona, he gave us some nice flashes. And you talk about another offense that, we don't even know if Hopkins is going to be there. And then even Hayden Hurst, we talk about the Carolina offense and how we don't know those targets, which way they're going to go. But Hurst is another piece you want to mix into that ownership percentage.
Yep, for sure. Coop, how you doing for time? We don't want to overstay our welcome with you, but
bro, every time I come on the show, I plan to overstay, right? Like, I always know. I mean, have we ever done just an hour?
No, we have.
How you guys feeling? You know me. Like, I'm down to chat a little bit. Let's at least answer.
Yeah, let's go through some more of these. Dan, did you make it to?
Can we hit 1912's question in the chat? Let's get the chat questions while those are up.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's a good one. So here's the thing on Dulcich. Like, coming into it, I like Dulcich. So my dynasty strategy is very simple. There's an article up on Fantasy Alarm. It's called the SORT system, SORT, and that's start opportunity, roster talent. I would put the roster talent part first, but that's not a word, right? So like sort is, but like the whole idea is you want to collect as many talented players and wait for the window to open for them to be a top target on the team. Dallas Goedert, a premier example. Delaney Walker is maybe a little extreme example, right? Like, we waited 7 years but he was a top 5 tight end like 3 years in a row. Once he got out from under Vernon Davis. But so like Dulcich, we like wide receivers converted to tight end. The problem is, I look at that offense and you have Sean Payton and he's building his offense. So he's bringing in all his old friends, and included in that group is Chris Manhertz, a blocking tight end, Adam Trotman, a blocking tight end, and Michael Burton, a fullback that on the Saints played 25 to 30% of the snaps. The problem with that, especially for the wide receivers, is that when you bring a fullback in the game, you're not taking the tight end out. You're not taking the running back out. Who comes out? One of the pass catchers, right? The pass catching tight end or the lower wide receiver. So when I look around and I say we have to find snaps now for Michael Burton and Adam Trotman and Chris Manhertz, and these are the pass catchers, it's Greg Dulcich and Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy and Tim Patrick, and they drafted Marvin Mims, and they still have KJ Hamler, and they inexplicably decided to bring Marquez Callaway over from who Sean Payton had with the Saints. It's like just this mishmash. Like, how are we going to find snaps for all these guys? So, and then I hear Sean Payton at the Combine saying it's Greg Dulcich is impossible. He's like, some guys are more difficult than others to assess. I'm like, dude, I don't want you to say that about Dulcich. You're supposed to say he's good, right? You're supposed to say we love this guy. So I am very scared for Dulcich, which to me is a guy I love in Dynasty. I would never, at this point, drop or trade him unless I got really good value. But I'm not taking him in best ball until I find out what the plan is. What the hell is the plan? What are they doing? What are they doing, guys? Do you guys have any idea?
No. And here's the thing. I'm mad at Peyton too, because I went out and I traded for Dulcich in Dynasty because I was going with hey, let's roster some talent. I needed some talent at tight end on this team. So I went out, I traded for him, and then 3 days later, Sean Payton comes out and says his crap about, he's a hard guy to figure.
What the hell was that, dude? What are you doing?
And so, now I'm like, okay, now I'm going to have to go draft Dalton Kincaid in my rookie draft because I can't count on Dulcich anymore.
I'll tell you this. I'll give so for the June 1 is a deadline where if you cut or trade somebody before that date, all the cap hits this year. If you do it after, you can spread it over the 2 years. You can't designate cuts afterwards, but trades you have to wait. I'm going to wait. Julio Jones is a great example. 2021, he was traded on June 6th with that specifically to spread the cap hit over 2 years. If they don't trade a wide receiver in June, it's going to be very difficult for me to draft Greg Dulcich in July. It's going to be very hard for me to do that. So I will give it through June. I have the yellow tape around him. I'm not drafting him right now. If they do trade a wide receiver, which there are a lot of rumors surrounding it, in June, then we're back, baby. We're back, right. Dan. But until then, I just can't. I can't do it.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to go about it. So let's hit a couple of these situations real quick here. Cleveland, I think, is another fun one.
Yeah.
We got Amari up at wide receiver 16. We got Elijah Moore at wide receiver 51. Donovan Peoples-Jones at wide receiver 68, and then there's a whole bunch of guys you can get for free: Cedric Tillman, Marquise Goodwin, David Bell. All of those, and then you got Njoku. Who we should be talking yin and yang about too. So, yeah. What are your thoughts on this situation?
So for me, this is one where my confidence meter is high enough on Amari Cooper, a player. And it's not just because he has arguably the best last name in the league, but I will. Yeah, let's go, boy. Fire up those horns. Let's go. So I will take Amari Cooper. I'll put the reach glasses. I will do reach for Amari Cooper a little bit because he was so close to having his best season ever last year. Yardage, he was like 20 yards off, and that's playing with Jacoby Brissett and a rusty Deshaun Watson. I don't think they did enough. Elijah Moore. We'll talk about that next. But I'm willing to reach on this one. I don't think it's ambiguous enough. I will draft some of the other guys later, but I'm willing to reach. The question on David Njoku is, can he be in the target mix if all those guys? After Amari, if all those guys get the same number of targets, Njoku, Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Njoku is infinitely more valuable because he has the tight end eligibility, right? I thought immediately Elijah Moore would be the guy. Funny side thing, I tweeted, is it going to be Elijah Moore or Donovan Peoples-Jones? And this one dude popped in to my tweets and he was like, it's definitely DPJ. And I clicked his profile and it was DPJ's uncle that was in my replies. I was like, all right. I was like, okay, dude. Yeah, but it was funny, yeah. But I want to throw it to you, JD, because we have, let's say this. Amari, I've planted my flag on Amari. I think he's the guy. We know Njoku. We like the uncertainty and the idea. Are you personally at ADP? Are you taking Elijah Moore or DPJ at all, or Anthony Schwartz? I mean, I guess
huge
I
lean.
forgot Anthony Schwartz.
Yeah, huge lean for me on Elijah Moore. Before he was in the doghouse in New York for whatever reason, he looked good, man. He looked like a prospect that was gonna ascend, and if the quarterback position situation and all that mess in New York never happened, I think he's got an opportunity, man. He's got an opportunity to resurrect his career right now. Like we said, other than Cooper, nobody's really established. And Njoku's been there. And Njoku's been one of these slow tight ends. He came out, everybody was pumped. He's athletic. Everybody loved him. He didn't do shit at first. And then he almost got cut, I believe, or traded a couple off seasons ago.
They fell for it, bro. They fell for the Austin Hooper target machine.
And Hooper's gone, and then all of a sudden, people forgot about Njoku, and he's out there alone, and he looked good. And now he's he could be top 5 easy this year. He's got all the tools to be top 5. But for me, out of the guys we mentioned, the guy I like the most is Elijah Moore. We haven't seen him in this offense. DPJ, we've seen this in this offense.
We've seen DPJ in this offense without Elijah Moore. Right, and it wasn't that good.
Even better.
And it wasn't that good, dude. And so I'm with you on that, man. And you know what's funny about these NFL teams that we do in the back of our mind, we always I do side with the scouts. I believe that a lot of these scouts are very smart, very talented. Like Brad Holmes for the Lions, formerly the Rams, the GM there. I now at this point trust him, but. It's funny that the Browns could fall for a fantasy football fallacy with Austin Hooper, where the Falcons threw 50 more passes than the next closest team, and they were like, "Yeah, Austin Hooper's good," or maybe volume just kind of boosted that up. So
don't lie, man. You like Hooper in Vegas this year? Come on, man. He's the last guy. He's your last hope when you're drafting. He's that last guy.
You can't.
When you have every team, with 3 guys on Julio and 2 more guys on Ridley, that does not leave a whole lot for Hooper. So
I'll tell you when 1912 says when Hunter Renfrow gets traded to the Saints, if that happens, then we can start talking about it. But they have 2 Jacoby Myerses now. They have 2 Renfrows now and Devontae Adams. You need a big shakeup. And they drafted Michael Mayer, man. They everyone thought he was the best tight end. We talked about on this show. I think we talked before draft that we weren't really feeling it, right? Like, big time, right? I feel like the Sam Laporta and Dalton Kincaid talk. I should have done a lot more victory lapping. I feel maybe I am growing up, guys. What do you think?
Well, I don't know.
Old me.
You're showing signs.
I don't know. You know that I am not. You know I will never. And I do.
I was trying to be nice.
Yeah, it's the funny thing is I do. Like I come on here. I think sometimes people look at my Twitter and they think that I don't know what I'm talking about. It's just like Twitter is a place for me for like memes and jokes and stuff.
Right.
How do you get a full thought out on Twitter? It's not even possible, dude. You know, and everyone.
I give credit to those who are able to do it, because some guys go put like a thread or like a whole, and you're like, wow, like that's some nice presentation. I couldn't even get through the first. I'm fumbling. You know, I just can't.
Yeah. Well, I don't get paid to. I don't get paid. Like my Twitter's like, you know, it's fun, but like I write the articles, man. Like that's what I get paid to do. You know, so it's like. What do I take that, put in the thread?
Too much logistics involved when you start adding like threads and stuff. You know?
I don't got time.
This podcast is for all the listeners. Yeah. My Twitter is more for me. You know, it's
yeah. My Twitter for me, my friends to mess around, right?
I love how you say that. I love how you say that. It's kind of how I feel.
Yeah. That's for memes, dude. If you want to have a serious discussion with me on social media, then look for my Reddit posts. Right, that's where we get in the weeds, where I can have character. There's no character limit. I argue. I will get in the weeds over there, but on Twitter, dude, come on now.
Or DMs are fine on Twitter. Yep. Like I don't mind. I know guys like Joel will DM me, Joey, 1912, Dan and I obviously, and even Andrew will get into some DMs. But like out there, just putting tweets out, and then the problem is there's so much more to the tweet. 99.99% of the time, and then people are just like reacting on that one set of words, you know, so it's almost meaningless at a certain point, you know. Exactly, man.
Shout out to the people that are very good at. There are some friends of ours that are very good at Twitter. I'm not that good. I'm not that good at. I'll throw out a couple memes though, like a couple chuckles, but like these podcasts, this show, the articles we talk about on this show, so the late round, you know, the tight end stuff's coming up soon, the wide receiver dart throw articles up there. That's like, you know, that's how you win your league. You don't win your league because you saw somebody's cat in a hat meme on Twitter, you know? Like, I'm sorry. Right. Honestly. Follow me on Twitter at Cooper of Fiasco.
at Cooper of Fiasco. Must follow at Over Heights on the end. I'm at JD District. Guys, let's get back to there's some you mentioned a name that I'm surprised how many minutes now? We're at 112. But it
feels like 10 minutes when I hang out with you guys.
Kincaid, man. This guy, I'm telling you, I think this guy wins or loses leagues this year, in my opinion. I feel like he's the Kyle Pitts of this year, in my opinion. I don't know if he's going to give you everything you want from him, but obviously in Buffalo, you know, we're talking about kind of, you know, target trees, narrow target trees. What are the rankings of the targets in that offense? Buffalo's perfect one. Obviously Diggs is there, but Dalton Kincaid gets drafted at his draft capital. So you know, they're talking big slot. What do you like or not like about Dalton Kincaid in Buffalo, and how do you like him at ADP and in fantasy?
Yeah, the rookie tight end fallacy to me is exhausting. Because this is a great spot to clear the air. Like I'm going to go in and probably clip some of this stuff and just take it and start like throwing it at people. Because like, here's the situation. People say tight ends can't be good before year 3. They have to develop. And you know, it's a complex position. It is a complex position. But the reality is the reason they don't break out is one, because they have to be the best pass-catching tight end on the team. And you have a room of tight ends when you get drafted, and usually someone's good. So, like, Cole Kmet had to get past Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham was old, and he wasn't really blocking at all, but blocking doesn't matter, right? Dallas Goedert had to get past Zach Ertz. That's the thing. It's very rare that a team drafts a Kyle Pitts and says, you, Kyle, are immediately better at pass-catching than Hayden Hurst. That's the first hurdle. And then the second hurdle is the one we talked about earlier. Now they also need to be better than the top 2 targets on the team. And here's the problem. If you have a team that has a garbage pass-catching tight end, they probably have a couple good pass-catching wide receivers. Unless the team is just complete nothing, right? Like, you have to balance it somehow. Either you have Kelsey and okay wide receivers, or you have good wide receivers and Irv Smith, right? We'll bash on Irv Smith one more time.
Yes.
And you know what I mean? But like, how often do you have a complete ghost?
He's gonna finish tight end 6 this year, guys.
How often do you have he might, dude. He might, but he'll be unstartable in redraft. He'll be Tyler Higbee again.
On that
So,
one
but how
game.
but how often do you have just a complete ghost ship, like nobody team? Like, unless you have an expansion team, like how often do you have that? You had basically, for rookie tight ends that were successful, there were 3 that I was alive for, and then Mike Ditka, who I was not. I don't think I was alive when he was rookie, but he was a very good rookie season. There was Jeremy Shockey, and then there was Evan Ingram when Odell got hurt, and then there was Kyle Pitts, who had 1,000 yards, which 1,000 yards at his age is obscene. Travis Kelce didn't have 1,000 yards until he was 27. Zach Ertz has one singular 1,000 yard season at 28 years old, right? So, and then he needed 150 targets to get there. That's why speed's so important. But like, that's why we look and say, is it possible? And this year with Dalton Kincaid, it's possible. I mean, he's a better pass catcher than Dawson Knox. He'll be in the slot. It's him versus Gabe Davis to be the number 2 target on the team. I don't think it's crazy for him to get the second most targets on the team after Stephon Diggs. And if Diggs goes down, then it's bananas. Then it's bananas, man. And I'll also slide in Zach Laporta and say, hey, Jamison Williams suspended for a good number of games. It's Laporta versus Marvin Jones versus Gibbs. Like ARSB will get his, of course, but I mean it's also not crazy there. So I'm usually pouring cold water all over rookie tight ends in redraft. This year, there's been basically three times I've been in, and it was Ingram and it's Pitts. And then now it's these guys. And next year if Brock Bowers, I might be in again, depending on landing spot. But very rare, but I'm in. I'm in on Kincaid, man.
All right, let's do some OTC, man. Let's see how in you are. Kincaid or Njoku?
Kincaid. Yes. Well, actually, damn. That's
wasn't there a meme just like that?
It's illegal to ask me that question. You can't start higher than Njoku. Can we start higher?
Freiermuth.
So I would never draft Kincaid over Freiermuth. I would. I'm drafting Njoku over Freiermuth.
They're back to back. They're back to back right
I
now.
worry about Freiermuth because same game, right? So like Deontay Johnson going to get more targets. Do you think George Pickens gets more targets, or do you think Freiermuth does? And if you like Freiermuth, and for those listening at home, if you like Freiermuth and you think Pickens gets more targets, and you think Deontay Johnson gets more targets, then you must love Kenny Pickett. And you must be drafting Kenny Pickett in every draft. And we did this last year with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, where we said, if you like drafting either of these players at their ADP, then you're drafting Tua. Mm-hmm. And it actually worked drafting Tua until he got hurt. So are we in on Pickett? Hey, are you guys?
Oh, yeah.
You're in. I've kind of like... I talked myself into him. The thing is, Dan, though, I've made a bunch of Kenny Pickett jokes, like small hands, 7 touchdowns, whatever. But JD, I've mixed him in.
He could be the best QB3 right now in Superflex.
Yeah.
Well, it's just basically you're looking at the situation with the pass catchers and you're going, okay, if I value all these guys as highly, then I have to value the quarterback higher. And the funny thing is we get the exact same thing again with Tua that we had last year. Waddle and Tyreek Hill still going super high in drafts. And guess what? Tua still not going that high in drafts.
Right.
It's like it's like we learned nothing from last year.
Anthony Richardson going ahead of Tua.
Yeah. Crazy, man. It's the Konami code, bro. It's the fever. Okay, so let's get back to it. Now that we've talked through it, I'm willing to say Kincaid over Njoku.
All right.
But I have both of them over Muth.
Dan, are you the same with Kincaid over Njoku and Muth?
I'm definitely Kincaid over Muth. I haven't been drafting Muth really that much at all, because
I don't have a lot of them.
I'm a little bit.
This is redraft, not best ball, right?
Right.
Yeah. Fantasy Pros.
Yep.
Yes.
Exactly. And I'm a little bit. I'm not down on Muth, but I'm just not up on him enough because I don't believe enough in Kenny Pickett. I'm still trying to get my Kenny Pickett belief, which is putting me a little bit behind on, like I'm not as big on Pickens this year, and I'm not as big on Freiermuth this year because I'm not as big. I have a hard time getting there on Pickett. So I'm going, okay, well, then I've got to adjust these pass catchers down. So, that's where I'm at. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. But,
Right.
I think Kincaid over Njoku, I think that's a fair take.
Give me Njoku every time, and I'll put money on it. Who wants to put money on it?
I like it, man.
Put it on the board, man.
He's safe. He's safer. He's safer.
He's definitely safer.
But who has the higher upside?
Yeah, I think it's got to be Kincaid.
It's close. But Njoku we like, dude. But if you like Njoku that much, you kind of have to fade off Elijah Moore a little bit. Can we pull up Christopher Davis's comment here?
Yes.
In the thing, because I think he makes an interesting point, right? Because I do agree with Christopher Davis that there's a lot.
I was just gonna ask you.
This part of it I agree with. And for those just listening, do you want to read what he said?
So he's basically saying if they play Kincaid as a slot, why wouldn't they just draft a real wide receiver instead? I can't see him doing much Knox all day.
Okay, so from that token, I fully agree with the premise of the point up until the Knox all day part, where so many times every offseason we say this running back is going to play slot or this tight end's going to play slot, and then the truth is there are better wide receivers. So Tony Pollard does not play slot. Kareem Hunt does not play slot, right? The thing with this guy, though, is that he is a wide receiver. He is just a big wide receiver. Like, he's the exact guy. Chan Gailey would be drooling with the big slot, like Eric Decker. This guy is like basically Eric Decker, right? That's why we're drafting him. That's why they drafted him. And if Christopher Davis here is right, and this guy's a part-time player playing a 40 to 50% snap share as a first-round pick in the Bills' window to compete now, their GM should be fired. Right? I believe it's Brandon Beane. If they use their first-round pick in this year when they need to win now, and the windows are closing on Stephon Diggs, who's 29 years old, and all these guys, if they draft Dalton Kincaid and he's not a full-time, impactful part of this team, after seeing other teams trade their first-round pick for A.J. Brown and Marquise Brown, then the GM should be on the hot seat. So that's the rationale there, Christopher Davis. And you might be right.
And
you might be right that maybe he's not the guy, but if he's not, then the Bills front office, the owner, then Terry Pagula should be pissed, dude.
See, Dan, last night I was saying I like how Larky changed my mind on somebody. I don't remember who it is at this point, but
let me throw in real quick on Kincaid if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jump in.
Go ahead.
A couple thoughts on that. Number one, why wouldn't they just draft a real wide receiver instead? That comes down to also partially the second contract. What are you going to pay a tight end on a second contract versus what you're going to pay a wide receiver?
True.
It's if you can get that tight end who can act exactly like a wide receiver, they're going to be cheaper.
That's a very good point, actually. No,
right. And Mike Gesicki messed that up. Mike Gesicki played 90% of the snaps at wide receiver and let them tag him. So now no one can fight the tag. Yeah. Exactly. So that is a good point. That's a good point.
And secondly, I mean, you've got him in there. You can also run 12 personnel now with Knox and Kincaid, and so it can make you more multiple on offense. It makes it a little bit tougher to defend. I see a lot. I see all these tight ends getting drafted, and I see teams, like the Vikings going out and spending big bucks to get Josh Oliver, and I'm going. I think there's a lot more 12 personnel coming in this year. Than because it's been it was fairly successful last year. And I think a lot of coaches are looking at that going, I think we need to run a little more 12 here.
Dan, you want to know what's funny about that? Right when the Patriots got Gesicki and the Bills got Kincaid, I was thinking about exactly what you just said, and I went to Pro Football Focus and I pulled up Sauce Gardner, and you know how many snaps he played in the slot last year?
Yeah,
9. So what if what if both teams, when they play the Jets, they take Mike Gesicki and Dalton Kincaid and they put them out wide, and on the other side they have Devontae Parker and Gabe Davis, and they move Diggs and Juju in the slot, and they say, hey, I dare you to come on in here. to Sauce Gardner because Sauce Gardner is that good. So it's kind of funny. It's like now you're seeing the chessboard set up for how it's going to show down. This guy played 0 slot. If the Patriots, I think about it as a Patriots fan, I'm like, go ahead, dude. It's like, put him on Devontae Parker. Devontae Parker will have 0 catches, but who cares, right? So it's like you're going to have to figure out, like, does he want to go in there? I'll be so interested to see if he goes in there. And both teams are doing it now. I look at the Dolphins can't really escape, but Sauce will cover one of Tyreek Hill or Waddle, and the other one will have big days. So it's kind of interesting the chess these guys play, dude.
Yeah, without a doubt, and that's that's part of the reason why we see those big tight ends, because it's hard to find a big slot wide receiver, but there are certainly advantages to having a big slot. So if you can't do it with wide receiver, you do it with the tight end.
Yeah. Patriots just committed to it. They brought another one. Did you see today?
Who'd they bring in?
They brought in Anthony Ferkser.
Yes, Ferkser.
Ferk him up. Ferk him up, baby. Let's go. So Gesicki goes down. Ferkser slides right. They're committing to it. They're committing to that the setup.
Yep. No doubt about it. All right. We're almost to a.
Let's do a last one, Dan. Since he segued into it, so he set you up. Come on.
Okay. What do you got?
Go for it, JD.
Oh, you want me to take? All right.
Yeah.
Well,
what do you got?
Because you talked about Sauce, and last night with Larky, we talked about the Jets quite a bit. Obviously, the Jets right now are they're winning the Super Bowl right now in the offseason. They've won the offseason Super Bowl. Let's face it. Between Rodgers being all over the news and all over TV, and everyone just being awesome out there in New York. But now you've got Rodgers joining a guy that we saw last year, Garrett Wilson, just explode as a rookie, even in a disaster situation, right? So do you have any concerns, I guess, with Garrett Wilson going into the season? How do you see his targets play out in this offense, especially the fact that they bring in guys like Lazard, right, who comes in. He's not necessarily free. I mean, he's going wide receiver 49 right now. But then you've got guys like Mecole Hardman that they bring in from KC with that Super Bowl experience. You've got Corey Davis, who's just ruined all kinds of fantasy lives with his end of season, wide receiver 2 finishes. Cobb comes in as Rodgers, best bud that he's got to take everywhere with him. It's like his little pillow. That kid that carries his pillow everywhere. That's Rodgers' his pillow
with the boogers all over it.
With the crusty boogers. That's amazing. Where's my shot? A little late on that one, but I was in the middle of a question. Come on. But with all those components, because they're obviously, you got Rodgers coming, you got to load up the weapons. So is G-Dub still the guy there, or do you have concerns?
The thing is, he is, and so he is the guy, and I believe he's the guy. But at ADP, I'm just missing. I'm not getting him because you got to take him at that turn right now, right? Yeah. I'm so in on CeeDee Lamb. Like, I can't take him before CeeDee Lamb. So I've seen him, and that's where I see him go, like right at that turn. And I just look around, and I'm like, do I take Jonathan Taylor or do I take Garrett Wilson? I'm like, it's hard for me. And I'll tell you, one big part of it is I wrote an article this offseason on DK Metcalf. And we know that DK Metcalf, he led the league in end zone targets. And then I looked at the year past, and he had double-digit end zone targets. And he had, for 4 years in a row, he's had double-digit end zone targets. So I was like, damn, like I feel like that's rare. So I started looking around to see if any other player did have double-digit end zone targets 3 years in a row. Even he had 4. He's the one with 4. Guess who else has double-digit end zone targets 3 years in a row?
Devontae Adams?
Alan Lazard.
No way.
Even with the injuries and stuff.
You could have given me
I know, bro. Even when we're talking about him, right? So it's like, but Rodgers is that guy. I watched him throw 13 touchdown passes to James Jones wearing a goddamn sweatshirt. Like, remember that? What was that? Like, they quietly made that illegal after that year. I was like, what is that? I was like, what is going on? Does this dude even want to play? But he just kept scoring touchdowns every week. He picks a guy, right? He picks his guy, gets dialed in. Like, I have a hard time believing Garrett Wilson could get 140 targets, 150 targets. I think that's absolutely within the range of outcomes. He'd get 170 targets. It's not crazy. But when it gets to the end zone, sometimes that timing, when Aaron Rodgers does that garbage where he fudges a snap count and somebody goes off sides and then he gets a free play, which he's so good at that. That ball is going to Allen Lazard, right? So and now they have Breece Hall pass catching back, Michael Carter quietly 50 plus targets 2 years in a row. They got all these weapons. Corey Davis, they said he's not going anywhere. Say what you will, great run blocker, and he'll get his targets. So I do worry that that's just enough for me and the QB uncertainty that I don't spend up. That's the flip side of these QB changes and Nathaniel Hackett's and all the uncertainty is that you don't want to pay up for the top part of the uncertainty, right? That's where we want the certainty. If I'm using a second round pick, there's too many certain options there. There's too many Josh Jacobs and Ramondre Stevensons and sometimes even Devontae. It's like there's two. I go through and I'm like, am I going to risk my whole season on this? On Aaron Rodgers? He already has a calf injury. I don't know, man. Are you guys doing it? And that's the hard part about Dynasty versus Redraft is I truly believe that Garrett Wilson is a special talent, right?
Yeah,
exactly. I like the player. He's going to have a good career. The age apex for wide receivers is 27 years old, 26 years old. So no matter what, you don't trade him in Dynasty. I'm just saying, I'm a little worried about the circus that just came to town.
Yeah, I think you've got to, I'm underweight on him, but I'm not drafting him, because too many things can happen. I mean, if Rodgers develops a mind meld with him, I mean, we've seen what happens.
Could be, yeah.
And, also, I'm right there with you. I mean, it's really hard to draft him over CeeDee Lamb. I mean, you pretty much got to take Lamb. But I also want to make sure I have some because what if CeeDee Lamb gets hurt and, you don't want to be, completely shut out on a guy. I've done that to myself too many times. I've just learned, if unless I have really, really strong reasons to completely fade somebody in the first couple rounds, I'm not going to fade them completely. I might take just a couple of shares, but
you just put Garrett Wilson wide receiver 1 overall in my brain, and now I have to go get him. You just gave me homework, bro.
I was just gonna say that's one of the strong points of our channel is we had Larky on last night saying wide receiver 1 possibility with Garrett Wilson, and you're on here tonight. Both very valid arguments why you have why you're each on your side. But you're also open to looking at the other side,
right? But
it just goes to show, like you said, that's the beauty of fantasy football. That's the beauty of the Go District. We bring in different views and we let the audience kind of make their own. What is that? Go ahead.
I think Larky would agree. Larky would agree on the floor as well, that the floor is low, but the ceiling is high. And it's like that's why moving forward, especially with this best ball world we live in, and you guys do a good job of this. We should start talking about it in percentages because most of us now are gonna draft 20, 30, 40, 50.
I'm at 8%.
100. Yeah. What percent are you at?
I'm at 8%, but the thing is I got that 8% prior to Rodgers.
Yes, so it's good.
I was talking about that last night. I was collecting those, before the news.
Yeah. So so you get your percentage, right? Like set your percentage. There were some guys like last year, best ball Evan Engram. I was like the percentage of like 170 or whatever. Friends of mine were coming to snipe me. I wasn't at 100 because people, I draft with Boston guys like Mike Fiala who, took him the second highest of everyone in the Scott Fish Bowl, in the entire Scott Fish Bowl. The second highest just to spite me, dude. So it's like certain players. Now people are doing that with Chig because they think it's funny. Matt Deutsch took Chig 30 picks above ADP in our recent, Better Sports Draft. Yeah, but it's like some guys I'm super high on, but this makes me realize I need more Garrett Wilson. I have to mix him in.
Yeah, and for those who didn't catch last night's episode over on Player Profiler when we had the episode with Larky. One of the things that Josh did over there at the 33rd team is instead of coming up with best ball rankings, what he did was he just took the underdog ADP and then he said, okay, at this ADP,
No.
where do I want to be on these guys? Do I want to be
Ownership percentage.
even weight, a little overweight, a lot overweight, a little underweight, a lot underweight, and just kind of phrase
And you
it
assign
like
a
that.
score based on that. It's
Yeah.
like a 3, 3.5, a 2, 2.5.
I like that, man.
Yeah, it makes,
That's
it
great,
makes a
dude.
lot of sense, because it's a completely different way to look at the rankings. It's just,
You have
okay.
to. Well, it's different for every format, right? Like Dynasty, we do this. Dynasty, we do sort. Redraft, we do yin yang. Best ball, we do percentages. Like it's the world we live in. So there's a lot more flag planting in Dynasty and Redraft, and God bless the Devi people out there. You sick individuals.
sick bastards.
I can only the draft is when it starts for me. I can only, these guys are like 4 years in and they're like holding the ticket like it just
Two things I tried, Andrew, in fantasy that I'm probably not gonna go back, and it's Devi and it's IDP. I just tried it once, and I just
Bro,
I'm deep where I am. I don't need to.
I live so much time that I can do about different things. It's just like I was able to. I love being able to sit back and watch the volcanic eruption that was Hakeem Butler go falling to the 4th round. It's like, so these people for 4 years or whatever are sitting there with their Hakeem Butler shares being like, yeah. Dude, he's a tight end. He played like 2 snaps for the Cardinals. Just, that was.
It's like Buddy that went to the Patriots this year. Receiver.
Keyshawn Butte.
Yeah, Butte. Yeah, exactly. Meltdown, bro. Hey, but Butte, see all this Boston stuff in the background? We like Butte, okay?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I don't want any of that slander here, okay?
We've taken a good amount of them in rookie drafts. I mean,
why not?
You're not taking them in the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round, but you get into the 4th, 5th round. It's booty time.
Yeah, it's booty time.
It's booty time. Play the sound there. Play the sound. Play the blah blah blah. It's booty time.
End it on booty time. I mean, we've taken 96 minutes of Andrew's life here. So let's no, dude. Honestly, this has been awesome. Every time you come on, we're 96 in, and we could probably go another 96 easily. We still have some teams we haven't even touched. I talked about Russell Gage in the intro. We didn't even get there. So we love when you come on, man.
Russell Gage. Come on.
Hey, what was that, Dan?
I said nobody cares about Russell
I know.
Gage.
It's like he's not even getting drafted in some drafts. But honestly, man, we love when you come on. We love how off the rails we get with the show sheet. We try to put one together just so we've got something to go by. But we love how deep we get with it when we bring you on. Remind the people all the goodness you have at Fantasy Alarm going on and what you've got coming up that they can check out.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. So I'm trying to make it easy for everybody. Follow me on Twitter at Cooper Fiasco. Like I said, it's a lot of memes, but I always retweet the shows I'm on. I always retweet the articles I do, and I take at least the best part of the articles I put them out there. But all my articles are on Fantasy Alarm. All my stuff now on Better Sports is being resent out on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube. So subscribe here, subscribe there. You can get all the stuff I do. And something tells me that it's only May and the season starts in September that we're gonna link up again.
Oh yeah.
I'll come on here and I've got things going with Fantasy Alarm and Better Sports where you guys are coming over to talk on my show. I've done enough talking over here. You're joining me. I'm dragging you both over. You can't say no. All right. So
All right.
yeah, and that goes for Theo too. So I love hanging out with you guys because we do spend a lot of time with Fantasy Alarm. We have a diverse crowd. Like the Sirius XM show, a lot more broad. I love coming on here because it does give me a chance for us to really get deep into these topics. So always a blast, man. That's why I always say yes. So thanks for having me on, guys. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Yep.
D-Gen's always present. Dan, what do we have coming up, brother? We have some nice guests lined up in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, so next week we've got somebody else from the 33rd team and a couple other places. Mark Garcia, I don't know if you're familiar with him, Andrew. I'm pretty sure you are, but Hilo FF on the Twitter street, And he's been a longtime friend of the show. We always have him on at least once a year. We're bumping that up. We got to have him on more. So he's putting out some awesome best ball content between the 1 week season and the 33rd team. So we're gonna get him in there, force him to expose his secrets. We're gonna find out what's going on in the mind of Hilo. And then also we have the Hardway draft coming up next Thursday.
21st.
And that's
or the first. Sorry.
Yeah, Thursday the 1st. So we'll give you details on where you can find that. It's going to be covered live. I don't know if it'll be on the GOAT District or somewhere else, but this is 12 of absolute hardcore biggest winners, everything. I mean, we're talking about people who've cashed $750,000, $500,000. We're all getting together for one Fantasy Pros Championship draft on the FFPC. So it's going to be nuts because it's going to be like the one draft that we can be absolutely sure that the overall winner is not coming from, because there's no way to come out with a team good enough out of this crew of 12 to survive all the way through the championship. But one of us is going to have the bragging rights for that league, and that's the most important thing to us. So,
Andrew, it's the only Hardway league I haven't won, and for some reason they won't let me in that one. I don't know why I've won every other one.
Poor JD. The problem is we never have any openings in this thing.
It's all good. It's all good.
So,
I don't want to have. I don't want to be like Tom Brady.
Are you getting checked? Are you getting checked at the border, JD? Are they? Are you getting the shakedown, dude? Let the man in, dude. I vouch. Hey, I'll vouch for him.
That's
all
pretty much
good. You know what? In all fairness, I would have hosted. We would have had it on the channel like we've done in the past years. My wife does not ask me for much on Wednesday night. She knows we do the show. She's asked me to give her a little ride to a concert out in Niagara and meet one of her friends out there. So I promised her I'd do that for her. So if there's another way we can get that draft out streamed, I think Dan, you said might be streaming it. We'll let you guys know anyways. Just follow myself at JD Goat District, at Overhyped Sleeper, no E on the end. At Goat District is also the main feed. And then, of course, at the OG Fantasy and at AMS Schellenberg. And, of course, our boy Coop at Coop A Fiasco. You guys are awesome as usual in the chat. Guys, check us out every Wednesday on the Player Profiler stream on their YouTube channel. We had Josh Larkey on last night. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out, guys. We appreciate the support. Smash the like, the views, the subscribe, all of it. Go smash your drafts, and we'll check you all later.
Goat District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
I like Joe's comment. League winner of the hard way has to play me heads up in poker.
That's right, dude.
I love it.
There you go.
I love it.
Rest in peace, Doyle Brunson.
Yeah, man, for sure. That was a sad one, man.
Yeah, the 10